So we're everywhere right now. This is like the biggest, well, not the biggest. It's another episode of Lore and Logistics, but it's also a crossover episode because if you're a Not Safe for Wonk subscriber and you're on the Facebook, the YouTube, the Twitter, wherever you are, you're like, what the hell? What's happening at 1 a.m. Eastern time?
Right?
We usually do an afternoon stream. Nope. We're breaking the rules. All the old rules are obsolete.
Everyone's invited.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Well, and I feel like everybody's kind of like, wait, is that literally a screen of all of my favorite people who've ever existed?
And it is.
The answer is yes.
So,
and you might not know it yet, but it will become clear soon.
Viewership already through the roof is actually kind of incredible.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not quite sure how to retweet this on like the Alyssa Vieira.
It should already be on your account right now.
Okay.
So easy peasy.
So
you don't even have to retweet it.
I'm gonna try. I said I would link this. Okay.
You put that into your DM groups or whatever. I'm gonna kick you out of the active window for a minute, and we'll do the intro. Hello, welcome to Lore and Logistics. Alyssa, typically your host, but you're also here with Lorena and Hector. Can y'all talk a little bit about what your show is for like 30 seconds? And then I'll talk about what my show is. And then all of the people will be up to speed with what's going on here late ass at night.
Word. All right. So we're coming at you. It's 10 o'clock here in California. I'm Lorena. I co-host Lore and Logistics with Alyssa. And we really just made the show so we could have a space to talk about social justice issues, like individual, like personal, like I got tarot cards, so like spiritual type shit, and like just like some good conversations that we should be having now. And so if you're into it, anything, social justice related, that's what we'll be talking about. And we also do watch parties of documentaries and like whatever. So come by.
That's actually like pretty good. If this is your first time seeing me, Not Safe for Wonks is our Twitter and our podcast. We just finished 100 episodes. We started as like a weird left mystical freaking show, and now I think later on we became more of a progressive podcast, and we had a lot of your left wing favorites that ran for Congress stopped by. Rebecca Parson, Seymour Hernandez, Shanyat Chowdhury, Lauren Ashcraft, Lindsey Boylan, yada, yada, yada. And we just talk about the issues, the things that are so important to all of us. And so, given that we kind of mine similar territory, doing something like this was like a real natural collection of ideas. So, we're now all up to date, all up to speed. And by the way, if you've got a comment wherever you are, you're on the Periscope, the YouTube, wherever you are, leave a comment and we can like stick it up here and we'll talk about whatever. And if you're a Lore Logistics viewer, you already know the deal. So
yeah,
we'll put
right. Like I feel like that's one of the key markers of our Lore and Logistics show is that we are very much into knowing y'all. So feel free to, if you're drop like either your name or whatever you want us to call you, because like we like to recognize your handle or whatever and kind of engage with that, have something to reference to you. So yeah.
So let's talk about
this is so fucking exciting. Also bad words. I use a lot of them. Apologies.
Oh, don't worry. They know. Everybody knows. We're all up to date. We all know what's here. So this is the crossover episode, and we had a really good crossover. We had an Avengers level threat like the fucking Spider-Man movie, because we wanted to talk about police and prisons. If you watch our show, we talk a whole lot about fucking police and their fucking shittiness. And if you watch, you also know this. So if you watch either, you already know. So we also wanted to connect that to the larger issue of the prison system, because I know we've talked a lot about the cops being fucking awful, but we haven't talked so much about the justice system, which is also fucking awful.
Yes.
and it's the enforcement wing of the justice system. And when we think about like police brutality, often we think about like people fucking illegally selling cigarettes or whatever, or minor crimes and police brutality. But brutality is not just some shit that happens one time on the street. Brutality can also be things that happen once you are caught up in the system, right? It's like not having access to equal defense under the law. It's having a minor offense and then being locked in jail because you have like some bullshit bail that's like set at $1 million and you have like $12. It's
or like the fact that you can set bail, like God,
bail.
sorry,
like right.
It's like fundamentally speaking, like, oh, okay, if you have money, you're good. Like, and they're like, there's no class in America. Just also like, you can't do shit for a fuck if you don't have money, and you suck if you're poor. We hate you. Like, so. Hi, Shannon. What's up?
Yeah, I know. I think like the most, like I think the statistics. Hi, Shannon. Is that we not only have the largest prison system, but we also have one of the highest rates of recidivism. So that goes to just show how this justice system is like very much so not serving the purpose that it should be.
It's absolutely
right. Well, and I think that's I think that's kind of like the killer, which is for me, somebody, as y'all know, has studied, both studied and taught psychology, have a degree in it, definitely not a practicing psychologist, but we know through most social science, whether Western, like, especially if we're looking at like Western ethnocentric science, which is what they all love to look at, punishment, like the entire legal justice system is based on this idea that we're going to like lower crime rates, when like fundamentally we know that's not true. Punishment is not the most effective way to get people to do what you want. And as Lorena was just saying, with our recidivism rates, like we know, sorry, it went to the big screen and I was like, oh shit, my face is so
We're
big.
zoomed in on
and
you.
I got really distracted. But
I knew you were gonna get distracted, but it's okay, keep going, Queen.
You're in love with Lorena. At your own face, you're like, damn, I make this look good. Okay.
That's all of us,
That is all of us. I was looking for Lorena to be like, yes or no. But no, okay, now that I can see Lorena, what I was saying, right, but is like that there is, but I kind of, some of the things I wanted to talk about, I think are a little bit different than what I would normally talk about, which is the structural and very built-in history of how horrible the criminal justice system is, and kind of also bring up something new that we're seeing, which is the absolute fucking violation of people's rights as they are being literally grabbed off the streets right now. And I think we're seeing like this weird shift right in front of our eyes. And I feel like America has always been kind of gaslit by media. But for me, I think there's this new tone of like, they are stepping it up a notch. And I think it feels to me like almost like the toddler dipping their toe in the water, like, what you gonna do, mom? Like, I'm gonna, and you're like, don't put your foot in there right now. And the kid's like, I'm going to see what you're going to do. And so they're grabbing people off the streets. And so I feel like right now there's this weird thing where we know cops aren't going to be held responsible for the criminal justice system. We know that it's not fucking protecting us. We're seeing lawyers going in to go help people in ICE detention centers, which have been a fucking issue since long before Donald Trump was in office, as we all fucking know. Janet Napolitano looking at fucking you. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So
Papa Melissa.
But
I just, so I get to this point where I'm like, every system that is supposed to be in place right now is a new way that they're testing the water, and I feel like they're really gaslighting us in a new way of asking us, like, are you going to challenge us? But we're seeing right before our very eyes on social media and through various friends, families, and our very own fucking eyes in so many different capacities. Like, it's not just people showing up and seeing the shit, it's like showing up, seeing the shit, going home, looking at the media and seeing this and being like, okay, this is very real and true, not seeing on the media. And so it's also this like more broad version of gaslighting. And by gaslighting, I mean making you question your own reality to be true and to be wondering. So you're like, am I a fucking conspiracy theorist? Because all of a sudden, like, shit just got super extra double real. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't real before, but it like escalated pretty quickly to where you're like, they just grabbed her? And you're like, you know, or him, or they're just shooting and you're like, they're really shooting for their faces? Oh my God, you know. So I'm gonna not hog hog this more than I normally do, but I think there's this weird shift in the media.
Well, let's connect that. So now that we have like this increased level of action in the streets, and people who have maybe been sheltered from this are now being forced to confront it. And we have in American history, things usually change when people are unable to avoid violence, right? Like when they're unable to avoid the consequences of the policy that's led up to this point. Unfortunately, because America is like a geographically large country, and there's also like a lot of wealth disparity and racial privilege that insulates people from being able to like see suffering communities or see these things. What we have in Portland is something where Portland, I talk to a lot of people who are in Oregon DSA socialist circles, and they're like, when we try to do activism, there's a lot of people who are supportive in principle, but like when you ask them to make any kind of material change, they start getting really flaky, and they're like, oh yeah, we have a Black Lives Matter bumper sticker, and I feel like we're doing our job in the fucking cause. So now
that we bought off Amazon, we didn't even buy it from the actual fucking website either. Sorry.
Right. E-Brand, whatever. Definitely one of our longtime listeners. What's up? How you doing?
Hey.
Hi.
Yeah,
a lot of my brands are contenders for the best brand of 2020. But now, what lessons should they take away now that maybe some people who were like half awake and half asleep have been kind of shocked into confronting what they've kind of empowered knowingly or unknowingly? What should that do in terms of changing the way that they're thinking about this, and what policies should they be? I'm sorry, don't worry about it. Nobody, whatever. What changes should they be making in order to, what should they be taking away from this historical moment?
I think before anybody says anything, I just want to like put out there that I think to clarify, like there are more ways to get engaged with this than I could ever articulate on a show, to be abundantly clear. But also Lorena and Hector have been, like, I cannot emphasize, I've never felt comrade more strongly, or just like family more strongly in random people than like these two I've met within the last year of my life, and I feel like I know them, and I would willingly leave my daughter to be raised by these people. Like I, love so much respect. They're also like, please don't fucking do that to us, girl. I won't. But so I just shout out, like I'm so proud, and I want to throw out there really quick, like I'm so excited to just be chatting with the fucking three of y'all, like Brandon, Hector, Lorena. Like I'm like, oh, yes.
You guys run it. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Keep it.
Okay.
Coming.
You got it.
Yes,
so
we got this.
Moment. So we got this whole frame. I feel like we got like a structure, like a question answer type shit. Like fuck, we're not. Shit, okay.
We did
everything with order. That's among like, oh shit, we got questions. I mean, Brandon's over here hooking us up with like the entire structure of like how to organize everything efficiently. So major shouts out to him, and like even like major shouts out to like you, listen to also you, Lauren, and like just being much more inspirational, just like keeping doing this work at the same time. Like since we go to a UC Santa Cruz at also like when we were undergrads, we were part of the cola strikes going on. We were part of the cola movement that was going on at the same time. So there's a lot of history regarding that, and I could not ask for better comrades to stand in solidarity with, especially when we were getting the word out on slugs for Bernie and campaigning for Bernie Sanders, and against the recall against Drew Glover and Chris Crone. Also, defending Chris Crone and Drew Glover at a local level, and still expanding that at a national level. It was, and still emphasizing the fact that that we were not only fighting for cost of living adjustment for just the grad students, but also for everybody, and just expanding that movement all the way throughout with so many comrades that were also involved with Alyssa and with Lauren at the same time. So I mean, just like major shouts out to that, and even in like with what we've seen in Cola and Cola for All during pre-COVID, that gave us like a big like a trial of what we're facing right now with this revolution that's awakening as we speak. So yeah, cannot ask for better comrades.
That's what it is. No, that's what it is. So like takeaway from this historical moment, I really do think like it comes down to like very much so direct action is what's like, not looking and not like accepting like the bare minimum effort as like okay, like now it's very much so like, well, you have had it kind of comes in like two categories. It's like either you have experienced depression or you have seen it, because there's no way like it is ignorance if someone says like that shit don't exist at all. That's just not even an option. You either see it or you've experienced it. And so now like I think like with direct action, everyone is kind of not waiting for a leader, not waiting for like a martyr or like a leader, it's really like coming back to empowering the people. And I think that's where, all of the power lies. And so I definitely think like right now, 2020 is the year of the people. And like, that's like the more people we have like in that mindset, the stronger we become. So that's my takeaway.
Lorena knows I couldn't agree with that more, says Hector. Like I think you two though, I think part of why I'm so fucking pumped on y'all is that y'all were the first and last people that I've communicated with, but like first people that like really took me serious when I was like, y'all, so I really want to start a class war. And I really want to talk about, like the classism and the racism on this campus. And you're all like, yeah, for real, let's talk about this. And like, I think.
Have you guys already done this?
Oh.
No.
Oh, you're struggling to do that? Okay, let's go back. Pay us more, ucsc.com, and I'll screen share that in a minute. You guys keep that going.
Check out payusmoreucsc.com. Follow them. Follow that campaign. We've all worked, like, honestly, at this point, like, even Brandon's helped with it by sharing, retweeting, and being part of the large support system that we rely on. But, I think that's where, if you guys can take time, that's where you can see not only what we've done on our college campus to, work collectively to spread awareness, but also to work to connect with multiple UCs, to connect with CSUs, and then ultimately not even just nationally, but internationally with other campuses. So it was really cool to see solidarity. I think I could honestly speak for not just the three of us, but even just, I think I can say pretty boldly, I wouldn't normally talk about this generalization for any other circumstances, but every single person that participated in the COLA strike truly and genuinely felt like camaraderie. They felt it was a healing space, right? Like we all fucking ate and danced and we talked politics and we had a good time and like we introduced each other, but we were like dancing the whole time.
Right. It definitely feels like right now, like what we were doing in Santa Cruz, the direct action, the protesting, the like actually we out here on the street type shit is what like I don't know. I think that should just be the motif. Like that's what everyone should be doing because, like we said, solidarity is addictive, and that's how you have these movements like last. You know, because it's people who care about each other.
So following up with that, it also really highlighted just how much Janet fucking Napolitano, Cynthia Larvey, and the university administration, both as a University of California system and the education system as a whole, are willing, like, to the expense they are willing to pay, both fiscally, physically, socially, and in every fucking capacity, to not honor the students, their demands and their requests. So, like, I know that's kind of a controversial statement. Some students felt like the strikes were a disruption, but I think those students were unfortunately students who were either rather removed or chose not to engage with the fact that the university is a growing and developing population, and UCSC admitted more than 9,500 new first generation students, 8,500 or more, which were low income first gen college first generation college students, and they did not add any new support. And they also proudly advertised that they got $1.5 million new dollars in funds, and then basically told us to all go bone ourselves and figure it the fuck out. You know, literally between the three of us, we all experienced how, like, the first hashtag we ever had with the cola campaign was hashtag not eating as usual, because all of us are so fucking poor that, like, between the three of us, we all fed each other at some point. We were all helping each other. Not like, I don't, like, we obviously don't mind that, but we weren't doing it because we loved each other. We were doing it out of necessity too. You know, like, we got to create this environment anyways. So, like, that versus where they spent more than like 3 times, I think it was, what we were asking for alone, funding the bullshit police, and we watched them pull like more than this much of somebody's scalp out, break ribs and all that on the fucking first day.
Are y'all frustrated when you guys have like modest policy suggestions or modest demands and like you don't even get those? Like someone passed like someone sent an 8 can't wait bill to our mayor in Atlanta, and we were already mad. We were like, well, this 8 can't wait shit doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
Like it's literally like Ted Wheeler type shit. I'm woke, everybody, and I signed this, but it structurally, like, it doesn't mean anything. And she vetoed the 8 can't wait package. So it was like, okay, you aren't even like giving lip service to these ideas at all. So when you have these, and I've been telling people, because y'all are in a blue state, right? And we're in a red state. And people who are here in Georgia, they think like, man, if we were to just get some Democrats in office, like we'd be better off. And we try to tell people like, because like I have this podcast and I talk to people that are in Washington State and in Oregon and in New Jersey and in New York, and they're like, no, yeah, it's
the worst. You don't want them here either.
Yeah, it's a corrupt as hell shithole, like machine politics, yada yada yada. So it's not like these are more justice-oriented outcomes. If you have a Janet Napolitano kicking you, or a Keisha Lance Bottoms kicking you in literally any of these cities, right? Or whether it's the governor, the Republican governor in our state, who sucks a lot, let's be clear, and is like trying to kill us all with the COVID or whatever. But it's
For
still
real.
not like good, you know.
Well, and one of the things I think it took me a long time to realize was just how much of a clusterfuck the elite is, and how much they literally pawn and push each other up. They step on us, which I hate to say, because there is a whole context behind that, as we all know. But like, there is
if you're in Washington,
much.
You know, Shannon.
They're panisting. Sorry, I just read something. But they are literally pushing. They push people down, and then they elevate the ones that they know who are vulnerable and willing to give in. So we just saw I think his name was Tyler Furman or something, but like this guy who busted the ex-Ohio state representative earlier today by wearing a wire. And then so we just like from even the most minuscule politics to the most grand. And what's interesting about Janet Napolitano specifically, because I'm coming for you, lady. I don't mean that in a physical threat. I just mean educationally speaking for those who are watching. I will get my degree for the single purpose of defeating Janet Napolitano on a boss level. Anyways, so
all that.
We will go to sleep someday. But here's the thing. It's not really 1:30 a.m.
Well, I mean, I think we're in Cali. Cali's like, it's pretty fucking early. It's like 10:30.
Yeah, we're in Cali, man. It's a totally different.
Damn, you telling us the goddamn bedtime?
They're dragging us on the East Coast into sync. They're fine.
Oh man, I thought. Right. I'm sorry that it's so. Okay, I'll take it down a notch on the radio.
No, you've got to know. Do be you. Don't worry about.
Yeah, go off, Alyssa.
I was like,
off.
Should I take down should I take it to like an 11:30 p.m. rant? Because I could do that. But so
but anyway.
What I was gonna say is it's such a fucking clusterfuck of elites. And so Janet Napolitano used to be some head honcho in Arizona, and as soon as she left Arizona, that's when they passed, I think it's SB 1070, and that was the documentary we watched the other night. You can watch it. It's called Precious Knowledge, but where they basically were like, only white people. I was gonna say men, but there's like two really fucking Janets in there, Karens. That they all are basically like, oh, this is really racist. This is really racist for you to teach these people a non Western ethnocentric narrative that is absolutely exclusive of any truth, if we're being quite fucking real. Like, and so they were like, they were trying to say things like pedagogy of the oppressed, and I'm trying to think of the other books they specifically quoted, but like they refused to go into the classroom and all this stuff. So go watch the documentary. But so Janet Napolitano's departure of this school. So mind you, this class that they were all fighting, that Janet Napolitano left specifically and was helping to pass this through. And then this guy, Tim Horn, all these people, basically, once they implemented this program, it got Latinx communities and literally every single other community involved. So it doesn't matter really, 95% of students across the board all improved drastically in every single one of their classes after taking this, because it helped engage them. They finally were like, oh, cool, So again, I'm going to do a shit job of explaining this documentary, but so just to get back to how much of a clusterfuck this is, Janet Napolitano leaves. It creates a legislation hole. Like idiot fucking 1 and idiot 2 all support each other, and they all create this thing. They pass the dumbass legislation in Arizona. Janet Napolitano goes to work for the Obama administration, which we all know is an absolute fuck game. Couldn't think of anything, and I said game. I don't know why, but here we are.
It's a game. I think it's okay to call it a game.
Yeah, it was a game, and he'll admit to it. He admits to it. He taught, like, you can search like Obama billionaire Republican did you good job clip, and it'll bring up him being like, I don't know why Republicans hate me. I made them billions of dollars.
We need more Obama impressions from Alyssa.
I probably shouldn't.
That was actually on point.
But so with his they made she was the Department of Homeland Security. She was the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, and then worked with them, and then she became the president of UC of California. So she went from Arizona. But like in that time also, mind you, they literally ripped out pages of their sexual education books, the ones that had vaginas for educational purposes.
Right. Don't look
so
at that.
I mean like this is also where what's his name, Joe Arpaio came from. But so anyways, hello Roxanne.
Word up.
Sorry, I saw the comment. I love saying hi to people. It's kind of my thing.
Hello, Roxanne.
Hi,
I'm assuming that you are one of our. I think we've seen you on one of our streams. So yeah, hey, what's up? And feel free to pop on as we talk about the system over there in California and the educational system, and somehow we're going to connect this to police and prisons. I'm not sure how. We'll figure it out.
I am exactly sure how. I will tell you.
State
right here.
Oppression. That's the connection. It's all just in different forms, you know?
Well, so that, but also her response to the COLA campaign, instead of giving a cost of living adjustment, which everybody asked for and proved, very relevant, they decided to instead send not just the university's police departments and not just our other university police departments, which are in the state of California given as much authority as like the California Highway Patrol. So they are a, legal peace officer. But so they sent them out, and then what they did is they lied about it to us, but they sent out the National Guard. They had come and surveil us, and then they had a bunch of other legal. So we had Alameda Sheriff's Department. We had right, you guys, like we had a bunch of police departments
it was from all over the place. So
right, and that was and they beat the shit out of us. Like
we literally physically did, and I just also like to note that, like, in a lot of other countries, like in South America, a lot of like social change stems from students, and like they're seen as like the most radical type of demographic, and like that's where a lot of change comes from. And since like we haven't had movements like we have been having, like how like in Yale and Harvard, they've been having students like storm the football fields to protest climate change. So now it's like, I think like obviously the younger generation is kind of developing an understanding that like if you play by the rules and you play their game, like you're gonna be stuck in the system. And then I feel like a lot of this activism is like not only like restorative, but it's also preventative, because we're also out here trying to not like recreate the same systems of oppression that we were brought into.
Do you feel like people, when they go through that, do they keep their politics? Because it's been like an old truism. Well, as you get older and somebody gives you a bag of money, you become more conservative. I think one of the things that's happened is nobody's getting the bag of money. Like that's not coming. That was something that existed maybe for like the people who are like 50 or in their 60s. But I feel like one of the reasons why there's been more cross-generational solidarity between like millennials and Gen Z is because they largely have the same material conditions. So, I mean, how do you feel like that's kind of been the case, or do you guys know anybody that got out of the educational system was like, got me a job, time to lick some boot? And how has that been going?
Yeah. I mean, even then, it's been like that is not something that is technically like it's not even reality at all to this point, because like a bachelor's degree, like especially nowadays, like doesn't even just the fact that you go in college and that you have to study in order to get a job out of it, instead of like educating yourself and expanding your shifting consciousness and going into a university where you have to actually not only mobilize and strategize and organize, but also weaponize your mind. I feel like that's something that we all as a community really have to go into this education system and really have to focus on. We're all so focused on capital, money, wanting more stuff, that that it creates a much more divide on us. And that's why when it came to especially throughout the COLA strikes, it was necessary for folks to actually disrupt most of the STEM classes who were still continuing on
Right.
through this business as usual mentality, because there were some great, fantastic STEM organizers, but not as many STEM folks were coming out as they should have been doing. And this goes towards all areas of study as well. So it was not only, restricted only to STEM, also humanities and social sciences and in all that aspect. But I mean, there's a reason why this sort of there was this sort of like gap, this sort of divide, and there was this pressure that we all instilled, that we all definitely pushed on and pushed all the way to the maximum on the forefront, so we could make some noise, and we made some motherfucking noise. Motherfuckers from you got like national news, fucking PBS. I mean, all these motherfuckers were like actually, recording. We made some noise that Napolitano herself forced her attention on us. Napolitano tried to bat an eye and say, it's just like another protest. Like, let Cynthia Larive, the new chancellor, like sort of, handle all of that. But there was a great, hyper militancy, like as a result from that, and just like the generational solidarity, especially between organizers that came through, especially folks within the Bernie campaign, which kind of like exemplified these sorts of principles, these sorts of ideals that college for all, Medicare for all. I mean, that's the same thing that we've been advocating for the past 4 years. COLA for all is basically Medicare for all and college for all wrapped up into one motherfucking bundle, and presented just like that. So I feel that especially with the university, you can definitely go in with the mentality of wanting to get a job out of it or wanting to get a career. But it's much more important to weaponize your mind, shift your consciousness, shift your different way of thinking, and take advantage, not take advantage, but just like be in solidarity with your comrades, learn more from them, and get involved in that way. That's like something that's the most important aspect of it all. That's really priceless at the same time.
Yeah, and I have a question for Brandon. If you went to college or not, did you experience any kind of movement? Because I think our year was kind of unique in that we were really in the midst of it, and it was very much so like bound to happen. But like,
so I went to a local college and dropped out like right before graduation. So like the character of that kind of setup, that's like it was a very large community college, and they didn't want to call themselves a community college, but it was one. Because of the character of it, there wasn't like a developed political character, because everybody was just trying to go in there and get their 2-year plus and then get out of there. So there wasn't like a we're campus organizing, because everybody didn't have the same material conditions, because it wasn't large enough for like, we're all living together, right? We all have similar living situations. We've got similar relationships with our teachers. We've got welcome back, Alyssa. We're just talking about like, does every college have the potential to radicalize in the way that traditional college campuses do? And I went to a very small college that doesn't want to call itself a community college. And so we were just saying that those opportunities were not there in the same way culturally, because it was more like a workplace. Like you would go in and you would take the class, but you weren't always seeing the same people at the same class all the time. So there was not the same opportunities for, organizing or whatever. Mm-hmm. So
right.
If y'all want, we can talk to the chat, because the chat's just saying, in terms of aging, my org has a lot of older lefties that radicalized as they got older. Yeah, it's not all the time. We were told that because there was something to get out of it, but definitely not true now, because the money situation is so much worse now that like you can't just like shut yourself off from what's going on. Oddstorm says like it was much easier to get a job when I graduated college undergrad. I was making double the minimum wage right out of school. How many people here like in college or coming out be like, God damn, 30 an hour would be nice?
Shit, I ain't seeing it. I'm a server. That's the most money I've ever made.
Graduating with zero debt, absolutely not. That would not ever happen. So yeah. So before we talk about not ready to burn it down, this is more of a general philosophical question, and then we have a very interesting question about Elon Musk, which might be slightly off topic, but maybe not. We'll try to tie it in.
Yeah.
Not ready to burn it down without a better replacement, but definitely ready to shut it down. Y'all think it can be fixed or nah? So just talk about the situation at your school. Can it be fixed? And then just talk about the situation with American society as a whole. To what degree can it be fixed or nah?
No is my answer to that, because what we
I love Lorena.
The more you like, the deeper you dig, the more shit you find. And so it's not just like when we started connecting with like other UC campuses, and when we started connecting with like other campuses, you very much so realize that like half of like, even though in the state of California, the University of California system is the largest employer of our state, and when you realize like most of that work is in administration, you find this very large and intentional bureaucratic wall. And something that I learned in college was like, I took a Kafka class. And so if you're familiar with the work of Franz Kafka, it's like he talks a lot about like the bureaucratic maze of like always being on trial, not knowing for what and what's the consequence or like the logic behind it. You know, it's just like head down, like do your work type shit. And like in that sense, I don't think that like, because okay, so if we were looking to reform, then the conversations we would be having with Janet Napolitano would have substance, they would have meaning, but they don't, because it's so deeply ingrained. This is a very well-oiled machine, right?
It seems like the people that are like in your way are so devoted to keeping the current state of affairs that they would rather blow it up. Like people, like the average person, like there are radicals obviously everywhere, but like the average person would probably just prefer, oh, an improvement. Like I would love to suffer 30% less. That seems fair. The problem is that the people in power are so devoted to having like 100% uncut suffering that it's probably easier people to just get rid of that system and form an alternative system than it is to negotiate with people who are so corrupt and so bought into the system that like, and this is like your left wing alternative. Ha ha ha! Laugh with us. To the current system. So yeah, I definitely understand. Like, there's no, because who's gonna do the fixing? It's not going to be the mayor that vetoed 8 Can't Wait. Like,
right. It's like it's not our job in the very literal sense that like we have people working 40 hours a week or more to make sure that this shit doesn't go off the ground, you know? And it's like all of the organizing, like,
and they're getting paid.
Yeah, no, they're getting paid, and we are very much so not getting paid.
Yeah,
Patreon.com/not safe. We let these three like plug their Patreon. They don't have one yet, so I guess you don't have to worry about them. They're fine.
You can Venmo. Alyssa has her Venmo in her bio. Venmo Alyssa.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a good idea. Hector, how much can our current university system be reformed, and how much can America be reformed?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was going to answer that. Like, also, I feel like, especially all the way throughout, like when it comes to the question between reform and revolution, we always like get stuck in this same sort of concept of, you know, are we ready to take incremental steps in order to get this overall social change that we want, or you know, or are we ready to kind of like actually revolutionize the way that we live life and the way that we, you know, daily consciously think? Here's the thing. With reform, it's already been tried 300 plus times, or 300 years, over 300 years throughout the United States. The definition of insanity is doing the same shit over and over again. So if we're trying to reform the system all the motherfucking time throughout all these, you know, inconsistencies, it's just not going to happen, since we already attempted so many times. Look at Oakland Police Department, right? Let's
don't look at it.
Exactly. Yeah, let's like zero in. Like, say reform is the solution. Say that we do try it, right? Within the issues of policing specifically, Oakland PD literally did so many things in order to reform itself. So many things. I have to be quiet because like my housemates here, but like did so many things to. It's so good, but Oakland PD did so many things in order to kind of like reform everything from in terms of trainings, everything, even from defunding, everything from, you know, from community refunds and reallocations into mental health liaisons. Did any of that work? It did not work at all whatsoever. Plus, on top of all that, not only did it not work, especially in these like terms of reforms, you also have the sort of concept that the people that are positioned in power usually make the same sort of mistakes. If they could be POC or black, for all I know,
Oh yeah.
they still get stuck in this same mantra and the same mentality of doing exactly repeating what the colonial state has been doing and has been teaching them to do upon their own people for millennia, like Obama did. And even then, just like considering the fact, I mean, with me myself, I organize also with some sort of a centrist within moderates within Santa Cruz. The white supremacy within Santa Cruz is real. So just the fact, at least like when you have other cities other cities address reform and at least here like the eight can't wait sort of propositions, at least they're listening. Within here in Santa Cruz, they're not even listening at all whatsoever. They're pretending like it does not even exist. I mean, there was this case of Tamara Smith that went on over here, and I'm in direct communications with the mayor. Mayor Justin Cummings is the first black mayor within Santa Cruz City in itself. And the entire black community, they are in uproar against Mayor Justin Cummings because Justin Cummings is giving them more L's than they're giving them wins, you know?
Yep.
That's because, and he was dubbed as the great reformist, according to the Good Times Santa Cruz article, without just only by declaring a Black Lives Matter month.
Yeah.
And taking all that into consideration, there's also some organizers and some activists that I know that feel insulted through this declaration of Black Lives Matter month, and there being no action steps to actually defund the police. So
everybody's changing like their lineup on the subtitles of the Hulu shows. We're changing like the woman on the bottle of hot sauce to be less problematic. Like there's no anything that actually matters. And listen,
can we talk about
when something gets in the way of the money, it happens fucking instantly. Like if you think about what an institution the Washington Redskins are, like they're way more money than the local police department, right? FedEx and Nike were like, okay, no more money for you until you fix this shit. And when that happens, Dan Snyder, who if you're like a sports fan or a football person, he's like the most wretched right-wing loon owner maybe in that entire league. And the NFL is a very right-wing league. So give even that, it bows to the money instantly, right? Because the whole point of all this stuff is to get the money. So if these companies that wanted to have Black Lives Matter Avenue were just like, we will not financially support any of these cities if they have their current policing system, then there'd be a new system like within like a couple weeks.
Oh yeah.
The way that the Washington Redskins are now Washington football, and there's no controversy. There's no, if you're a sports fan, they've been arguing over that shit for years, and there'd be some weirdo that goes out to interview, the Native Americans, go and interview like the white guys with the beer gut, argue. When the money came in, that was the end of it. So if these corporations really actually cared, they would be like, okay, we're boycotting, we're leaving your city, we're doing that. So like Coca-Cola, if they want something changed in our city, they literally just call the mayor. Like, I don't think people know the extent to which Coca-Cola and Delta run shit in Atlanta.
Oh my God, like, Coca-Cola?
Coke says no, then that's like Disney in Orlando. It's just like,
right, exactly.
So if that's not happening, they don't really give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, like, just the fact that, just the fact how capital in itself is, influencing politics in such a vast amount that, it's practically controlling the moral values of what our society thinks and how our society is acting overall, especially on this regards of social justice. The one thing that is really fantastic and what's beautiful about this time specifically is that so many people are being radicalized and politicized, and they're seeing right through the bullshit of what these institutional actors are certainly, throwing upon, especially when you look at, when you look at, I mean, thank you so much for even highlighting the fact that, of that class and that just capital in itself and that money is such a primary factor. It's like, it's so crazy because just the fact that, because if you're passing if you're passing a budget within your city, that represents your moral values of your city. Within Santa Cruz city in itself, they're devoting 28% of their entire budget into the police department, a $500,000 increase compared to last fiscal years, despite there being a pandemic and a $20 million recession that Santa Cruz is facing right now. If you zoom into the funding, 50% of those funds that SCPD is receiving is going into patrolling. What's the one area that is really affecting and that is really, criminalizing houseless communities, particularly black communities and communities of color? It's no coincidence that 1.8% of Santa Cruz is black, which is a really low percentage. Thanks for the gentrification of Santa Cruz city in itself and its high unaffordable cost of living. But like, despite the black population being 1.8%, only around 8% of the house's population makes up 8% of them are black, which is a really high percentage. And if you really, really zoom in, going into the juvenile detention centers of Santa Cruz, I mean, over 40% of them, of the kids that are locked up in juvenile detention centers, are Latinx. So this white supremacy, this ethnic homogeneity within Santa Cruz, it's done on purpose in order to increase and expedite the suburbanization, which makes Santa Cruz the white spot it is today. So racism and class exist in terms of intersectionality. And so many people are being much more aware of this intersectionality of what's going forth right now. So it's just a matter of capitalizing off of the fire that we have right now. Capitalize, I mean to do a pun, but like, it's like, yeah, but I think it's just like, it's yeah, but it's just capturing the fire that we have right now, keeping the momentum going on. I mean, with me being involved with some folks of the BLM organizing groups within here in Santa Cruz, they're experiencing so much hate crimes and hate biases. I'm not at liberty to speak for them, but they're experiencing so much hate bias and hate crimes that highlights the racism of Santa Cruz in itself. So especially with the case of Tamaro Smith, who died within Santa Cruz County prison, and he died because of overhydration. They did not release that report until 1 month later after his death. It was 1 straight month of straight out, silence on what was the cause of his death. No public autopsy was even provided. It's still not provided to this day. And when you have that, and then you have like you have that going on at a prison level, where a 21-year-old young black queer male dies because of this lack of medical care access. But at the same time, you have institutional actors that say Black Lives Matter, but then the Board of Supervisors within the county level renovate a $5 million contract with California Medical Group, which is in charge of the medical care of Santa Cruz County prisons. That's just a lot. I brought this up in one of the meetings with the Board of Supervisors, and they literally did not answer that question at all whatsoever. They avoided it. So yeah.
And listen, like, they're trying to win a PR battle. They are not like trying to use their influence to affect change on the ground in any kind of way. It being what it is. Yeah. El Chicano mentions Keisha Lance Bottom has raised the APD budget every year that she's been in office. And even the 8 Can't Wait, that was more like a redirection of funds, was not like, and it wasn't at all like I wish people knew how minimal that stuff was. It was really like more on the lines of like a corporate style reform of like putting a nice bow on things. And she was like, no bows. We're just going to get in here and like, yeah. It's just a mess. So given all of that, well, Roxanne, thank you for being the kind of loyal listener / viewer that would be here at 2 in the morning to talk about these issues.
For real, you're a real one.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was just gonna point out, like, kind of building off what Hector was saying, just to because this is represented in Angela Davis's "Our Prison's Obsolete," which y'all can literally download. I'm crazy, so I have to print everything out. But I only print out the things that are worth printing, so take that with what you will. But there is like in 2002, just kind of relating this back to prisons and police, and how there's this underrepresentation of citizens that are given minority status socially, I want to say, because I do think that there's like a statistical difference in representation than there is in all reality. I think that there's some some people are overexcited to self-report.
I definitely say anybody from the East Coast that listening to this, y'all, if you live anywhere west of Texas, east of Texas, you are the real heroes. You're the people that are making this really work. So yeah, big things at Metro Atlanta DSA. Yeah, I'm incredibly proud of what we've been doing the last couple months. And we'll have so much time to talk about that. Real force out here on these streets. Really, really hyped about it. But yeah, continue. Prisons.
Well, so and I think I also, before everybody leaves, just want to say, yeah, again, we super appreciate this, and we're gonna try and work on getting it a little bit earlier for the Eastern time zones, because we want to hear what everybody thinks, and I think that
we can rebroadcast, so they'll get to see
right.
it. But however,
so everybody remember, you guys can come back on later and watch the rest of this at a different point. But so, anyways,
wake up, it's fine.
Yeah, watch it for breakfast.
We're like Netflix. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Netflix and chill.
Yeah, have us on in the background.
Just kidding. But so something that's profound, I think, to me in the very first chapter of her book, and we're going to talk more about this tomorrow for everybody that's listening with Awkward. I think all of us are going to try and be on here with him, and we're just going to try and do the virtual social distance quarantini party. So, but this thing that Angela Davis says is, quote, "When I first became involved in anti-prison activism during the late 1960s, I was astounded to learn there were then close to 200,000 people in prison. Had anyone told me that in 3 decades, 10 times as many people would be locked away in cages, I would have been absolutely incredulous. I imagine I would have responded with something like this. As racist and undemocratic as this country may be," now remember, during this period, the demands of the civil rights movement had not yet been met or consolidated, "I do not believe that the United States government will be able to lock up so many people without producing powerful public resistance. No, this will never happen, not unless this country plunges into fascism." That may have been my reaction 30 years ago. The reality is that we were called upon to inaugurate the 21st century by accepting the fact that the 2 million group larger than the population of many countries are living their lives in places like Sing Sing, Leavenworth, St. Quentin, and Alderson Federal Reformatory for women. The gravity of these numbers becomes even more apparent when we consider that the U.S. population in general is less than 5% of the world's total population, whereas more than 20% of the world's combined prison population can be claimed by the United States. In Elliot Carey's words, quote, "The prison has become a looming presence in our society to an extent unparalleled in our history or that of any other industrial democracy. Short of major wars, mass incarceration has been the most thoroughly implemented government social program of our time." Okay, and then skipping a bunch of stuff, I'm just going to finish with kind of what Hector was saying about the overrepresentation in Santa Cruz County, which is that She goes on to say, she's talking about the overcrowded women's beds and how, all these, in less than a single decade, the number of California prisons doubled. And during in the 1990s, 12 new prisons were opened, including 2 more for women. In 1995, State Valley Prison for Women was opened. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So, however, in 2002, there were 3,570 prisoners, and the other 2 women's prisons were equally overcrowded. There are now 2. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, you guys. There are now 33 prisons, 38 camps, 16 community correlation facilities, and 5 tiny prison mother facilities in California. In 2002, oh God, okay, here it is. Okay, 2002, there were 157,979 people incarcerated in these institutions, including approximately 20,000 people whom the state holds for immigration violations. The racial composition of the prison population is revealing. Latinos, who are now in the majority, account for 35.2%, African American 30%, and white prisoners 29.2%. There are now more women in prison in the state of California than there are or were in the entire country in the early 1970s. So I'm going to end there. That was a monologue because I was kind of trying to find where I was, so I apologize. But it's all really revealing. And I also want to point out that the state of California still practices eugenics. And for those of you who don't know what that means, the state of California, not me, goes in and legitimately affects women's reproductive health and well-being so that they cannot reproduce children. And so next time we talk, I think one of the things we will talk about is like how data, technology, and your genetic information can be stolen and affected, but they can literally harm us in so many capacities. So I think that's, as far as we know, I have not contributed to eugenics. That said, every psychology student has participated in at least 5 hours of psychology studies. So,
Man,
just kidding.
Who knows? Okay. Don't trust no one. Okay, but like, yeah. And still, we have this reputation that we're a super blue state. So yeah, it's just it really is a different kind of evil. Especially when I hear mothers, basically a mother prison. That's just a special kind of evil.
There's go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just want to mention that. I mean, Angela Davis is professor emeritus at UC Santa Cruz. So just the fact that she wrote all that and she's from our campus at UCSC, it just proves how like this radicalization, just like it's really this shift of consciousness. So yeah.
That's weird.
Remember, this was written in 2002, 2003. So, like, it has gotten exponentially, and I mean that in every literal sense of the word. I'm not being over exaggerating. It has gotten exponentially worse, and so that's where we come back down to like, she talks about this, but reform has always been a part of the discourse with prisons. And like I think there's something to be said for how absolutely out of control people have made it abundantly clear that they feel about police and the state of things. Like,
right.
There's nobody questioning that the vast majority of the United States population right now does not feel safe. They don't feel safe from the pandemic. They don't feel safe from the police force. They don't feel safe from social programs. They don't feel safe economically. Like, in every capacity, all these things, they don't feel safe. And moreover, they've been taught this individualistic culture. And I feel like, so like the dominant heteronormative. So I'm speaking like to a very specific group, not all communities, right? And this is broad stereotypes, but like a lot of people who have bought into this myth of meritocracy and this pull yourself up by your bootstraps, are experiencing, or like even overly religious people are experiencing this like state of affairs that's really hard to deal with. And so I think it's really important that we kind of talk about the fact that there is a lot of fear right now, just in general, for a lot of people in a lot of different societies. And I don't want to be exclusionary to any, but I think that that's why we're seeing, in my opinion, such extreme behavior in so many ways. And I think that Trump was the first person to embody what a lot of people already knew was true, or were in the process of knowing was, becoming kind of the state of affairs. But there became this certain point where he was, like, we've all watched the emperor not wear any fucking clothes for like what, four goddamn years. It's been 82 years.
Yeah, no, it's so fucking ugly. And so I just thinking back to like, why is reform not the answer now? And like in that same book, she talks about how the prison system as we know it is the reformed like social collective punishment. It was supposed to resemble like the Calvinistic Protestant like value system where it's like your work is your pride is like
repentance
to God, it's repentance, and it was tied up in like Western religion type shit. And so obviously now that we've moved past that, we're at a corporate model for prisons now, so it's no longer supposed to be a sanctuary or
Moral
whatever.
purification, right? There's no pretense of morality anymore, which in some ways makes it worse because traditionally that tablecloth, that cloth of morality was able to bring some social pacification to it, and you could say, well, you're suffering, but this suffering society will tell you it's meant to be therapeutic, and now your suffering has no therapeutic benefit to society at all. It's more like when you talk to people about crime in prisons, it's like, yeah, just let them suffer, man. This is what we're here for.
Exactly. The good, the bad. It's like they're separate entities, as though like people aren't people, like doing the shit they gotta do to survive. And so like that's why, like I think it really has to be like abolition has to be the solution we're working towards actively and right now. Because again, when you go back in history, you watch stagnation go on for decades. It feeds off of itself, like the concept of inertia. Like if we're not moving, we're not going to move. But if we keep going, we will keep going, right? And so it's like that's why people are like angry with some protesters and saying like, oh, like you're getting some things, like Disneyland has like gay pride on their Twitter icon, and so like why isn't that enough anymore? It's never fucking enough.
Because it never like addresses the financial incentives for bad behavior. That's like the brick wall that you can't go through, because in the same way that people will like kill you to keep a grip on their money, they will also use legislative powers to like kill you with the stroke of a pen and keep their money. And of course, our entire like media apparatus is based around like, no, this physical violence is so terrible, it's so immoral. But like if a governor like signs a paper and is like, you've all got to starve to death, you've all got to get COVID, you can't get insulin anymore, and they write a paper, then it's like, well, those are the rules. They signed the paper.
Exactly.
Bye, sorry.
But they also is a very intentional entity that was made to like buffer out. Not only does it create a comfortable middle class where you can be in a like I worked at an internship at the FDA, so like any shit goes wrong or whatever, we just got angry about vaping a lot, but like sorry, like like it puts you in this very comfortable position where you don't feel like you are like taking away anyone's rights, because it's so incremental. It's like boiling a frog, it's just like cutting off these things in like places we don't know, and like using terms we don't know under like meanings we don't see and type shit like that. It's just like if like shit, like if we had like the public square like we did back in the old times, you know, it's like we would at least see that, you know, on the surface, but we don't even see it.
Yeah, and I also wanted to come in briefly. I think my housemate already wants me to like keep it on the down low. So I had to keep my volume down low, and I guess I had to like
pretend you're NPR and talk into the
yeah, for she has words. I'm not trying to interrupt. That's why. But she's trying to sleep.
Yes.
But yeah, I just wanted to also mention how even if all types of reform have already been tried, and to connect this towards the prison system in itself, I mean, especially throughout California, the entirety of the state prison facility was started as a project that was head started and, you know, spearheaded by the state in itself, and even at an attempt to reform it, because at the time, the way these state prison facilities were funded, they were funded through public what's it called, GOB funds, you know, which were basically grants that the government would give, the federal government would give towards the state in order to construct these state, you know, prison facilities to incarcerate people, particularly people of color and Black people in general. You know, but then you had two representatives, Lockyer and Boatwright, who saw this, and then they said, okay, there's so many GOB funds going on towards the construction of the state prison facilities. How do we reform this? How do we reform this system so less money can go into into the construction of state prison facilities that was mainly organized by CDC and that was mainly, you know, built by the labor of prisoners themselves? They were trying to figure out a way and how to further lower the costs so there won't be as much construction, right? But if you look at, you know, if you look at the formation of that entire, you know, of this type of reform, like what was formed out of it, you know, there was like a prison reform conference committee, which was formed in order to support a vertical integration in prison reform, which would give more money towards local law enforcement and take this burden of paying away from Sacramento at the outset, so they would reduce the cost, and that would be their attempts to reform and reduce the construction of state prison facilities. But instead, what resulted from it was the expansion of state prison facilities, and this formed an unbroke criminalization armature across the state, and which resulted in like the overcrowding of prisons, the hyper acceleration of prison populations through this pipeline, and the introduction of the privatization of introducing corporations into the private prisons as well. So that was the result of reform. If you try to do this again, you're going to get the same shit over and over again. You're going to get the same consequences. So, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you can make the case for I want peace, not war. But the colonial state project, they have decided that war is the option that they can mainly go at. So, similarly, as Fanon says, we should combat this colonial violence with anti-colonial violence. So, yeah.
I got the PDF. Fuck yeah.
Yo, Liz's got the book. I like that.
Even on the fucking low, even when the roommates are sleeping. Still fire. Be careful, the house might burn down. For real though, yeah. I have nothing to add, but
all right. Well, given that, I mean, do y'all want to do like a taster of a different subject that we kind of skipped over and may want to like add a little discussion to? And that discussion is Mr. Elon Musk. And I guess that since we're talking about how our current system prefers violence to reform. So Niall Elcom popped in a few minutes ago. And shout out to Niall Elcom versus the World. Political hacking / Niall does a lot of media like us. But yeah, Musk is tripping on Twitter, said we'll coup whoever we want, deal with it. And this is not like the rantings of like a weird, quirky billionaire. And one of the issues that we have talked about consistently since it happened, even though it's not in the news anymore, is the situation in Bolivia. Because in Bolivia, they're sitting on a huge supply of lithium. And lithium is the core ingredient in electric batteries. So when Elon Musk tweets like, we'll do whatever we want, I don't know whether he's being glib or not. Sometimes it's hard to tell how malicious he is versus just pure dipshit. But you got to understand that the shit that's going on in Bolivia directly connects to electric car manufacturers like Tesla, which is like Ellen's core source of grift. The stocks for Tulsa went through the roof. Tesla. I'm sorry, why Tulsa? I'm thinking of Tulsa Gabbard or something like that. But Tulsa in Oklahoma, Tulsa Gabbard.
We were watching Precious Knowledge last night, and we were talking a lot about Tulsa, Arizona.
But yeah, either way, Tesla stocks went through the roof after the coup in Bolivia. He made tons of money just directly from that event because they were like, we'll get those batteries for a little bit cheaper.
Swear to God.
And so, yeah, deal with it. So,
and get this. Guess who's worshipped by the STEM majors?
That need to be bullied, and we've talked about this.
Yeah, see, it's weird. It's like I love those memes where it's like capitalist imperialist billionaire says something. It's like weird nerd. It's like they're taking the bullet, and it's like they'll defend him, and it's just like the amount of bullshit fuckery that Latin America and like South and Central has already gone through. Like it is like just like my mom's from Colombia. We had like drug cartels, we had that whole thing going on. But like even when it comes down to the land, like hashtag land back, right? Like the entire country of Panama was Colombia. And then Theodore Roosevelt was like, we need this for a canal. And so that land was just taken. And so it's like this is not more clapping emojis. Like this is not a new thing. Like Alyssa always recommends The Open Veins of Latin America, and I haven't read it, so I feel like a piece of shit. And like, read this book, and I haven't read it. Everyone else has apparently, but I haven't. But bitch does know that Latin America has been getting fucked over by this colonial imperialist fucking nation. And it's just it's just like I just hate how cocky he is about it and how it's like quirky and it's a meme, and it's just like just goes to show that like just the division that class has in your lived experience. It's so ugly.
So while we acknowledge Latin America is getting fucked over, we're a clap emoji podcast now. Sorry, that's just how it goes. We really tried to, you guys really tried to have a dignified aesthetic for like all these episodes, and I get in and it's just emoji time, Garfield memes.
I love it.
But let's talk a little bit about this because we all probably agree Elon Musk bad. Where does Elon Musk rank on the stupid to evil continuum? Do you guys think that he's just stupid, or you think he's more evil? I lean towards evil informed by stupidity. Like it pays to pretend to be disingenuous, but I think he knows what it's like when your stock goes up after a violent action overseas. I think you know that. I don't think it.
You have to.
I mean,
I'll be real. I think Trump is more dumb than Elon.
Trump is dumb.
Trump is dumb, and I think Elon. But we have to remember where Elon Musk is from, though, and this is my fucking beef with him specifically. Is his mom is an Emerald Empress from apartheid fucking South Africa. So, there's abundance of reasons to hate him because he's just a fucking twat. He's just a giant fucking twat online. He acts like a pretentious middle schooler, and like we watched him grow his hair back after he got money. Like we were all here.
I remember.
Motherfucker, we watched. Like, and no judgment. I don't give a fuck where your hairline is at. But like, don't try and play coy boy with us. We watched you grow it back. We know what you looked like in college, and now you're like I saw the greatest meme. It's with fucking what's his name? Fucking Steve Buscemi with the skateboard, and he's like, hello, fellow kids, with his hat backwards and his skateboard.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just, so Elon Musk is such a fucking that. Also, he's got a creepy ass fucking history, and that, my friends, I I own and made skateboards, and I can grip skateboards like a motherfucker. But fuck Elon Musk, he's got a creepy ass background, and that brings me to my point about Ghislaine Maxwell. And I saw this interesting thing on Reddit, and I want to know what y'all have to think about it, which is that I have not seen any pictures of her actually getting arrested.
Of course, because I bet she was arrested in a very polite fashion. She was like, I'm really rich, so don't dog march me because I'll be embarrassed if you guys do like a mugshot and grab me and drag me into the car. So they were like, of course, you've got money. We've got to arrest you, but come right this way, and we'll do that in a way that protects your dignity and humanity. Which,
so given that, do y'all think that she was more in charge of shit than Epstein was?
Oh, no.
No? Okay, because once you have
I'm
just speculating.
You're more in charge than the cops that are doing the arresting. You're more in charge of most of the people that are involved in that system and just have jobs because it's all a money and patronage based system. So I wouldn't say she had the most money and therefore was the most in charge. But I'm sure she has plenty of authority over the process in terms of hiring a lawyer to scum up the works, hiring a PR firm to defend her, getting the president to say, oh, she's nice, like all that kind of shit. And, it's kind of funny that like Colin Kaepernick, who like knelt at a football game, is like a son of a bitch. And this person who like recruited kids to be fucking sex slaves, it's like, oh yeah, not too bad. Human being, we're all human in this world. It's really.
I hope she's doing well.
George Bush type shit. War criminals, get over it.
Get over it. Yeah.
Next.
Joe Rogan, crime against humanity. But all the like Mike Bloomberg, let's change the debate rule so we can come and hang out and be on the fucking TV show. It's really incredible because those people that are in those positions of power have much more material impact on people's lives than like if one of us were to like say something bad and get canceled because we had a bad take on this show, and we would be like, "Oh, Alyssa said da." But really, like the shit that we say,
I lay up at night and I think about it though. Like I can't even. I'm like, oh my god, guys, I'm really stupid.
Won't find anything.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Social anxiety. Enabler, hell yeah. In charge, I don't think so. She might have not have been caught otherwise. But okay, the only reason I bring that up is because Jeffrey Epstein has newer wealth. She has the older background of wealth, yada, yada, yada. And you also don't see the same treatment with Epstein. Epstein, as we all know, absolutely fucking killed himself. A. B. I said absolutely, but we know he did not. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. He did not.
We know.
Everybody knows what I meant. Okay.
Yeah.
But like building off of that, we saw him get arrested. We saw all these things happen and all this shit. And so it's like Ghislaine, we haven't seen all these things. And I'm just like, I wonder if, also like, she's in every single fucking picture. Was she the token? Was she like, the fucking elite lizard equivalent of a gang sign?
Yeah, she's like an allegory. An allegory for all that shit.
Well,
yeah.
You are right that Epstein was a climber and he had some sort of magic ability to move the numbers, and that was what endeared him to
fucking lied. He didn't even have a degree too.
Yeah, and he was famous for his party throwing abilities, and that was what made them so excited about, working with him. So you are right that she was already in money, and was clearly willing to get her hands dirty, and was able to go in places that people who were more skeptical of male-bodied people weren't able to go in, so she was able to use that for the business.
For real.
The shit makes my skin crawl. I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about it.
We
can switch.
No, it's content. I mean, look, and it's definitely like worth mentioning. Oh, well, okay. So prisons. This is unfortunately, this is the. For a second I thought interesting moral conundrum, and I was like, wait, this is the only moral conundrum that anyone asks. White trash. But yeah.
So lighten the subject.
Epstein, prisons, no. What's the argument for that?
Right. So are we kind of talking about like
carceral,
like how?
Like, yeah, the carceral state and child trafficking rings. But I feel like that is the first thing that you ask any politician. Like when Bernie was talking about, yeah, felons should be able to vote, and then they go, well, what about Jeffrey Dahmer? And we're like, well, that's like one person, and there's like millions of people who aren't your edge case that you've handpicked to argue against.
I think that really does reflect, and I keep on bringing this word up, but the collective imagination of like our prison system, I think that really is revealing, because I think that there still is this sentiment that like genuinely only bad people go to jail. And like that's why people bring up these like cases where like, oh, we're gonna let the Unabomber start voting now, like what the fuck? And it's just like, well, like for every one Unabomber, there's 100,000 marijuana fucking cases, you know, like that's not even scratching the surface.
For real though, I mean, and like they're like, oh, he low key, we actually turns out might not know about hair follicles being a legit science. Also, fingerprints, and we're not 100 on DNA, and like slowly they've been undoing forensic science. Now, mind you, I have a degree in psychology, and I almost had a degree in anthro, and my focus was forensic anthro, and that was my shit. I loved it. My morbid little fucking Wednesday Adam ass was all up into it. And there is a fallacy. Like, and this goes back to like media representation, and something I was actually going to bring up earlier when you were talking about mascots, but like how imperative, you know, media is in shaping both our culture and how we identify with things, what we talk about with things, all these things you guys know. But so like oh shit, I don't want to forget this. Okay, wait. So culture. Okay, wait. But the police narrative. So we have all these different narratives going on, right? And y'all know about that. But like we have what they call the crime master narrative, and we have a bunch of different kind of tropes, if you will, that go on that reinforce this idea, kind of like Lorena was saying, where like people who are in jail are bad, and you know, criminal bad, prisoner bad, and like we don't even like on the surface, just barely on the surface, like that fucking absolutely just toots in the fucking face of like innocent until proven guilty. You know, like in every capacity, our media really influences how we interact with our societies, our communities, and all these things. And so, like, that's why when you were talking about the mascots earlier, I was going to bring up how, unfortunately, the fucking Redskins football team had one of the most predominant representations of Native Americans in American culture and media for all of fucking time. And that is a horrible, like, the underrepresentation of Native and Indigenous people is right off the bat bad, just by how underrepresented they are. And then on top of that, when you look at it, it is almost like 9 times out of 10 misrepresentation, and then like a quarter of a tenth of the time, I can't do math. I am a social psychologist. I meant to say scientist, damn it. Anyways, so so there's all this misrepresentation, and that's where we kind of get into this the idea of math being absolutely goddamn useless. Yuck. But you know what? Here's something I want to talk about. I want to talk about my bitch ass teacher, Mrs. Warden, who looked me in the face and said, "What are you going to do? Carry around a calculator in your pocket? Bitch, I got an iPhone."
Sometimes
I do every day, actually. End rant. Anyways, I love math. I love Miss Anderson. She was an amazing instructor. Anyways, my point being is that there is this underrepresentation, and so I took this whole class taught by this phenomenal woman, Dr. Rebecca Covarrubias, and she talked about the psychology of mind, society, and culture, and she basically was talking to us about, we went over different cultures throughout society, and then we talked about how there's this concept of mutual constitution and how your participation in said society not only shapes that society, but that society will shape you, right? So it's mutually constituting. And so it's really, really hard when you are underrepresented in society. I could go on for this about hours, and I feel like I'm droning the fuck on. But so I just wanted to talk about, like, one of the things that's come up peripherally a lot that we don't engage with is that we need to change not just legal aspects of things, but social aspects of things. And I don't just mean like grassroots movement and involvement, but I mean social, like we need to re-liberate people through shared knowledge, both collective, past, and moving forward. But and I think that's why it's so imperative that we do things like this, and we talk about these things, and we give resources. And so one of the resources I want to share is called Human Rights Violations as Structural Violence. And I'll share the link with everybody on Twitter, on the Twitter thread for this, and I'll make sure that we have it. But it's by Wagner et al. And it talks about like peace psychology, but they talk about how like direct violence is fundamentally as traumatic as, you know, like structural violence. And I just will close on this idea that when in our brains, when we process hardship or heartache or sadness, all of these things, like we process it in the same part of our brain as pain. And so, like, if you have heartbreak, take a Tylenol. You know, that emotional pain is processed in the same center as if you were to stub your toe. So, like, what I'm getting at is the trauma from emotional experiences kind of loops back to this bigger theme we were talking about earlier with pain, in that, like, I think society right now is really scared and has fear and has a lot of pain, and so
we all
I just think
we need some ketamine up this bitch. Damn, like for real. And so yeah, like like what on the topic of like how do we deal with the sex trafficking if we get rid of the system as we know it? It's like it hasn't been working as it should be. Like there's way, like I can count on like 10 of my hands, like people who have unreported like sexual harassment, assault cases they're not reporting because again, like the criminal justice system is not a safe place for survivors of that. And it's like now, okay, so then how do we deal with the predators, focusing more on like the predators, right? It's like this is kind of like what Alyssa and I talk about a lot. I feel like we bring this up. It's like there is no sympathy, and like work with me on this. This is gonna be a hot take, but like there is no sympathy for like pedophiles or people who are
yes,
sexual.
I was talking about this the other day.
Exactly.
We always talk about this.
And it's not saying that we are condoning that shit, but like there needs to be a space where people can be like, wow, I'm having these thoughts. I need psychological evaluation on this. And that's where Medicare for All comes in. But like,
you know, I think that when we talk about that, I think that it's natural to have an urge to protect the people who are like most vulnerable and they don't have the ability to like mentally are not like mentally developed to refuse consent or to say no or to have coping mechanisms to avoid those situations. So that's like obviously very important. But I also think that there's a disturbing tendency in society that we've deemed like a group of people like a safe emotional outlet for those kind of things. And so when we hear those kind of stories, people who seem to be like regular everyday people tend to have extremely like violent fantasies and really violent ideation about these criminal matters that are like, you don't like act like that about like murder or rape, because like there's not the same societal permission structure for like, oh, I'm gonna cut this person's nuts off, I'm gonna barbecue them, and eat them. Whereas like while obviously like putting folks like into punishment situations or whatever, and protecting the community. I'm also personally just discouraged when there's like an over eagerness to have like ideations. I don't know if those are good for society.
Right. And like something I'd like to point out is that like this all like pedophilia really goes back down to like society at large, because if you look, because like growing up as like a girl, and any femme will understand this, it's like the ideal woman basically globally is like a young, like submissive, hairless, like girl. Like it is modeled after like a very young woman who is like very easily exploitable, very easily gaslit. And I think that like that's something that we all have to go through, and then like, you know, pedophilia like runs with it, right? But like it's to have like a police officer be our only barricade to protect like victims or survivors from these predators, and like that only the police being that barrier, that's, you know, how we have so many unreported cases.
Well, and I think when we start to, if we start to go off what Lorena was saying, which is, okay, it's society at large. So we have to kind of grapple with a couple things. One of those things being, do we want prisons to be, and we have to tackle this both collectively and individually, but do we view and or want our prisons to be there as a method of punishment, or and prevention, and to keep society safe, or do we want our prisons to be there as a method of rehabilitation and, you know, growth and development for those people? Now, never mind. I was going to lie and say I'm not saying those things are mutually exclusive, but to be honest, in our current society, I do think those are mutually exclusive. But so we have to kind of grapple with A, what do we view the points of prisons, and then B, going back to what Lorena was saying, which is society at large, which is we have to think. I personally believe that we need to view this in a more long-term situation, and I've kind of said this on Annihilation Cage, but we've all talked about this, I think, individually at times, but you know, I am of the very firm belief that we have to not just, we've got to play fucking 4D chess. Like, we have to think both, how do we prevent right now? Yes, okay, maybe we do short-term prevention and short-term like keeping people safe, but in the long term, I'm of the mindset, once we stunt these cycles of crimogenic situation, and once we stunt these cycles of poverty, capitalism, quite frankly, in my opinion, and these hardships and these struggles that people encounter and face, we will see a very, very sharp decline in people who are going to be expressing these things. Moreover, if we create places for people to go to when they know they're experiencing these types of feelings or hardships, and they know they're not going to be like immediately branded, have something on their record, and that's going to haunt them for the rest of their lives, if they feel like they can safely go get care and adequate help, then I think we prevent the actual abuse from happening, once again stunting that cycle. And so you run into this where once we prevent these crimogenic situations, we stunt cycles of abuse, there will be very few people left. Sorry, I read the capitalist. Socialism means putting everyone into forced labor. Also capitalist. Lock them up and pay them 23 cents an hour. I love that. But so like there's so many rants we could go on, but fundamentally speaking, I think we need to think about this in not quite such a short term and or linear way, but more we need to think of it more vastly and broad and a little bit less individualistically, and look at like, okay, what do we know to be true? We know that people respond to better behavior with positive positive reinforcement schedules that are random, so they're rewarded occasionally, but rewards blah 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 blah. Punishment is not the way to prevent behavior. So we need to think about rehabilitation, prevention of these cycles of abuse, harm, poverty, crimogenic situations, and we need to stop the fucking school to prison pipeline and the military academic industrial complex. I mean, and a bunch of other shit, but there's this big swirling cyclone, in my opinion, of all these things that kind of that make it so that we have to have a whole book on like the new Jim Crow, which everybody should read this, and then go watch Ava DuVernay's 13th. It's on Amazon, but there's all these cycles and these industrial complexes that lead up to pretty easily projected classes or castes and trajectories, and you have to really fight, and then they put us all on these social ladders and then expect us to commodify our trauma and stomp the shit out of each other's fingers on the ladder of social mobility. That's why I will end this TED Talk at the Wendy's drive-thru with a giant fuck you to Janet Napolitano and the UC Police Department. Y'all can suck my balls.
Word up, that part.
That's very well said. So listen, that does it for our weekly installment of TED Talks at the Wendy's drive-thru.
Easy peasy.
Also known as Logistics. A little crossover-ish episode. Yeah, this was fucking rad. I was sitting here thinking, wait, it's really late at night. Who's gonna come? But first of all, everybody. Yeah, this is when this.
Everybody finished. That's rare.
Anyways, I'm not gonna laugh about that, but
I'm so glad you did.
Yeah, we were gonna call Lauren Logistics after hours because we knew that we were not gonna be. We're trying to do this so we don't have to do the 9 to 5, right? So like that's why it's late at night.
I feel you. So yeah, this was good. This was great. We love it.
Okay.
We love to see it.
We're plugging for tomorrow. We have an interview. I think it's going to be 12:30ish, 1:30ish our time.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. And then we're also doing the live streaming of a movie tomorrow night. I think maybe.
Okay. Yeah, we might be watching Snowpiercer.
Woo! So hit us up. Well, so yeah, we're gonna talk and brainstorm more because we're kind of going by all of this on the seat of our pants. But if y'all are interested, hit us up.
If you watch this, get in the DMs. Alyssa has literally 200 DMs, and you can just be in the ocean of DMs.
Get in it.
Yeah.
Join the party.
Yeah.
Love it.
I swear. We're all warm, nice socialists. But no, let us know what you like, what you don't like, and stay tuned because we'll probably be dropping in tomorrow.
Yep.
What do you have to say, Garfield?
Ah.
Garfield's a little drunk. Garfield's had too many. Go home, Garfield. Get out of here.
He said, "Get lit."
Yeah. Garfield's getting lit. We're all getting lit.
Pack a bowl.
Woohoo!
Thank y'all for watching. This has been a great episode, a great time. Not safe for wonks. Lauren, primarily, this was like y'all's episode. I was just here, which is great. So
no.
Thank you for watching, and we'll hang out again tomorrow after a while.
Woohoo!
Bye bye.